Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blackhawks Banter, presented by the Hockey Writers. This is our 18th episode. It's the Denny Savard episode, so welcome in, everybody. We have our normal crew back together after a couple weeks of some different lines. We don't have any of those weirdos from Detroit visiting us tonight, so we're good to go. We're back to our normal first line here. My name is Greg Boysen. I'm going to be your ringleader, discussion leader tonight. I'm joined by Gail Kauchak, Ms. Brooke LoFurno, and our Hawks man up north in Canada, Shaun Filippelli. How is everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Well.
All right, but before we get into the good stuff, just a quick reminder, if you're watching on our Facebook page, please click that like button. And for those of you over there on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel, make sure you've subscribed before you leave, but I'm sure you've already done that already because we remind you all the time, and we will at least one more time tonight, so just do it, please. All right, and you can also follow all of us excuse me, on Twitter to stay up to date for any time we have a new Blackhawks Banter episode or some great Blackhawks content, which we've been bringing to you all season long. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about, not a lot of time to do it. So last week when we got together, I don't think any of us made any kind of bold prediction as far as what the Blackhawks are going to do against the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. I think we mostly all said they were either going to get 2 or 3 points, and they got 3 points over in 3 games with Tampa Bay. An overtime loss to start the series, then a shootout win in the middle game, and then but you got to feel a little bummed out because it seemed like they had 5 points. They had a 3-0 lead in the second period yesterday. Not saying it's fault, but Brendan Hagel takes a stick penalty and the wheels fall off and the car explodes and they lose 6-3. So that one leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Could have been a lot better, probably should have been a lot better, but overall, what are you guys' thoughts of that series, and who is your top performer of the week? Gail, we are going to start with you. What do you think?
Okay, well, I actually was, I did not expect them to play as well as they did against the Lightning. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that I predicted 3 points, but it was kind of a hopeful 3 points. And then the fact that they were on the cusp of, getting more. I think the thing that impressed me the most, and I actually wrote a bit of an analysis on it today, if you want to check it out, but they the first couple periods of the game on Thursday, they were dominating. They had the reigning Stanley Cup champions on their heels. They couldn't do it for 60 minutes. That's their problem. They're just not consistent, but they did it for 2 periods there. And then, they were the ones on their heels the next game, but yet somehow they managed to stay in the game with good goaltending and, they were resilient. And then they were, for a good, what was a period and a half, I want to say, on Sunday, we thought that they were going to win the game. They were up 3-0. So they have it in them. They just need to figure out how to do that consistently. And it was a measuring stick, and they've hung in there with Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think it's a positive thing.
Okay, Brooke, what do you think of the series, or who stood out the most to you?
Yeah, I agree with Gail. I wasn't expecting Tampa to look that disorganized for most of the series, and I wasn't expecting us to look that composed during long stretches. So I predicted 1 win. I think most of us did. So that kind of seems standard. But I don't know. That last game really left a bad taste in my mouth. I feel like that was kind of like a kick of like, we're good, but not good enough. And that like really irks me. So, but I will give them credit that they got 3 points out of that series when I really wasn't thinking they would get much out of that. But so good for them, I think. But yeah, that really like kind of angers me and pisses me off a little bit. But my standout player, I'm going to say, is Subban. He looked very like kind of shaky in the second game, I thought. And I was like, oh no, we're in for a really long night here. But then he somehow turned it around and he was the talk of the night and really helped us get that win. So I'll say he's my standout player.
Alrighty. Excuse me, Shaun, what do you what's your take on last week?
Yeah, no surprises. I mean, all of us were disappointed with Sunday. They looked like they had it in the bag, and then they just dropped that bag completely. So it would have been nice to see them secure that victory. Obviously, that would have propelled them into a little bit of a different conversation and a different level of progress, in my opinion. Seeing them falter with that was tough, but at the same time, as we look at a overall scale of what they did throughout the week, as you've all touched on already, getting 3 out of these 6 points against the Tampa Bay Lightning, reigning Stanley Cup champions, is no small feat, especially considering the progress that they clearly showed from that first set against Tampa to start the season. And I don't think that can be understated. I know it's easy for Blackhawk fans for us to find excuses, and they still got 3 out of 6, and it's okay, and Sunday didn't matter. Sunday mattered, but the reality is they're still showing progress, and that's what we've all said. That's been the tone of the year, and we've seen that. And they just did that against the reigning Cup champions. So I'm happy overall with their week. Clearly not so much on Sunday if we were going to use that as a microcosm, but overall I'm happy with what we saw out of them. And Brooke, to be honest, I thought I was going to be the only one to say it because usually goalies don't get the love that they should. But even in a small sample size, Subban definitely deserves our credit here. For what he was able to come in there and do, showing even his own progress, his own redemption against this team that beat him up the first time around, stopping 39 of 42, stopping all 3 shootout attempts. He stood on his head, and realistically, if it wasn't for him, this is one of those games where he absolutely could have been the make or break, and he helped them secure their only victory against the, again, reigning Stanley Cup champions. So Subban gets my respect for last week.
Yeah, I was going to mention Subban too, so you guys. But Gail wrote as well. Her star of the week was Alex DeBrincat. Hard to argue that. He's been spectacular. But yeah, Subban was great. I think it was it Shaun that you put out there on Twitter that he's now 6-0 in his career in the shootout.
Yeah.
So he's the anti-Robin Leonard as far as that goes. Hey, and we're halfway through this season, and who would have thought that right now the Blackhawks are getting the better end of that Leonard for Subban deal. I mean, it's Leonard's hurt, so there's but hey, good production as a backup is much better than no production at all right now. So maybe we knew what we were doing there. I should say, Stan, I doubt it, but right now that one's looking pretty good. So we'll do that. And yes, that Sunday loss, man, that stunk. But that showed that there's still a lot of systematic flaws on this team were exposed by the superior team. While the Blackhawks have been fun and have been much better than expected, they got a little bit of dose of reality in that second half of that game about the actual gap between the two teams right now.
Okay, they were out DeHaan, one of their best penalty killers and best defensemen. Then they were out Murphy for half the game after he got his match penalty. They were 7 defensemen, a rookie in there doing his debut, and 11 forwards. So perspective, maybe little kind of.
Yeah, but that's all true and all needs to be taken into account. But they got themselves in penalty problems with the stick penalties drive coaches nuts. They drive me nuts. It's one thing if you get a penalty for being aggressive on a check, but it's another thing if you stop skating, you have to trip a guy. So yeah, but it's still, the penalty kill needs some work. I know we were missing Murphy and DeHaan. I hope Ian Mitchell learned that you got to block a shot on the penalty kill. Teaching moments. So maybe this will be good in the long run. Maybe some of these young kids will get some teaching moments out of this. That's a coach lingo too. They love that stuff. All right. So enough about Tampa Bay. Let's put them to rest until we have to play them again coming up later. Outside of that 3-game series, the biggest news of the week, no doubt, was Brent Seabrook announcing his retirement after 15 seasons with the Blackhawks. That news came across on Friday. I don't think this decision necessarily shocked a lot of people, but it's still sad nonetheless. He was really the first of that core group of players to get up to Chicago and start to succeed, and he kind of led that new charge before the Cups came. Also in that news, Andrew Shaw was placed on long-term IR for the 2nd season in a row with his concussion problems. So there's going to be kind of a 2-part question we can tackle. First, let's reminisce. What's your favorite Brent Seabrook moment? Let's see if we not all pick the same one. And second, do you think Shaw at this point should take the lead from Brent Seabrook and earlier Corey Crawford and kind of just listen to his body and do the same route and maybe call it a career. What do you guys think? Brooke, we'll lead off with you.
So for Seabrook, one of the things that actually came to my mind is when I was kind of first learning about the roster and kind of the players or trying to get acquainted with them. There was this YouTube video that the Blackhawks posted. I think it was back like in 2009 or 10, something like that. And it was like the Blackhawks sing-along thing for Christmas, and Seabrook had like a hilarious line in there, and I don't know what it was, but that just stuck out to me as something kind of fun because we don't really see a lot of like their personal like side. So I don't know, I thought that was fun, and I kind of just remember him in that kind of light too. But also the third, what was that, the third overtime goal, Nashville 2015, something like that. Like he's just known for like those clutch moments in the playoffs. So that's I'd say that was one of my favorite moments. But when it comes to Shaw, I think we said it before, but I love Shaw. He's one of my favorite players, but it is scary to know that he's had like back-to-back concussions. And at this point, I don't know if it's worth it. It's not worth, your long-term health. He's a dad. And honestly, it's up to him, but I don't think it's worth it for his like longevity and everything else, which is disappointing.
For sure. Shaun, what's your favorite number 7 moment and your take on Shaw?
As Brooke alluded to, and as we all know, Seabrook showed up when it mattered most, and the playoffs were exactly when it mattered most. Going right back to 2013, conference semifinals against Detroit, obviously a big momentum shift was needed. They were down 3-1 in that series. I'm not going to talk about the overtime goal he scored to actually clinch it for them in Game 7. I'm going to take it a few steps backwards and say that a favorite moment of mine, even as a fan watching that game live, I'll never forget it, was when Taves was just having a rough go at it and got into the penalty box, as we all know, and Seabrook just kind of out of nowhere, and they caught it on screen, went over and just had a little chat with him. It was in that moment where he not only calmed down his captain, but collectively seemed to calm down the fan base. I mean, I felt better watching that, which is weird because I had no impact on the game, but seeing that happen just sort of felt different. I believe they still lost that game, but then coming back and doing what they did the rest of the way, in my opinion, that was a huge momentum shift. And then the fact that he ends up coming out and being the guy who scores the OT winner and sends them over to the conference finals, it was just an all-encompassing example of who Seabrook was as a player, let alone as a playoff performer. So definitely always going to remember that as a fan and what he did most as a microcosm of what he was known for. As far as Shaw goes, I think Brooke said it best. I mean, we can't control what he does. It's not our decision to make, and it's easy for us to talk about on this end. But you got to look at it and just say it's just not worth it at this point. Obviously, you got to put health first, and it seems all the signs are pointing to the fact that the best decision for him is to hang him up. So I hope he makes the right decision for himself. Obviously, I hope health and wellness, regardless what his decision is, but it just feels like that's the right thing for him to do.
Okay, Gail, what's your take on these two topics?
Okay, well, obviously, there's so many things on the ice that we could talk about with Seabrook and so many highlights. But I'm going to kind of go the Brooke route and pull some personality into it. There's a couple of things when he would be interviewed. Remember Fruit and Crap, triple overtime.
Mm-hmm.
They gave us a bunch of fruit and crap to keep us hydrated and keep us the energy. And what was the other one? Oh, I think there was a time when he was like, well, they lost in the playoffs. And he was like, well, at least now I can go have a few beers with my friends. So he always just seemed to, have a good personality. In regards to Shaw, you know what? It's his decision. None of us, we can all say what we think he's supposed to do. It's his body. It's his decision. Let him do what he wants to do, and let's respect him no matter what for it. And, he's going to do what's right for him. And, I can't even imagine what that would be like to have your body basically tell you that you can't do what you love to do anymore, which is what's happening with Shaw and what happened with Seabrook. And it's just, it's sad and unfortunate, but it is the way of the world. So.
Yeah, I'll echo your guys' sentiments about Shaw. It's hopefully the team is kind of maybe steering him in the right direction. Ultimately it's the player's decision, but hopefully he's got some people in his ear kind of saying, hey, let's do what's best for you right now. Seabrook, yeah, he had so many of those big overtime goals, especially in the playoffs. That Nashville goal you talked about, of course, everybody remembers the Detroit goal that was one of the craziest nights I was ever at the United Center. There was the big overtime goal later in the final against Boston. Game 5, I want to say that was that crazy game. My favorite Seabrook memory, though, is it's most basically for personal moments. I won't get into that because we don't have that much time, but there was a game early. I think it was the first or second home game of that 2009-2010 first Cup season. There was a game that they fell behind 5-0 to Calgary, and they came back and won 6-5, and Seabrook scored the game winner in overtime. And that was the first game that I kind of was like, whoa, this team might be something special. And they didn't let us down there. So that's my favorite Seabrook moment. That was a fun night, and kind of like the start of realizing that that group was going to be something good.
That was a fun topic.
Yeah, I think, well, except for the concussion part. But,
yeah, that was we had a great time.
But I think I can speak for all of us and all Blackhawks fans just by saying thank you, Brent Seabrook, for it all. It was, the guy took a lot of crap online for the contract he signed. That wasn't his fault. He was going to say no to that contract. And, but overall, he's one of the best to ever wear the uniform. So dual retirement of number 7 for him and Chelios, the first night you can get fans back in the building. Let's make that happen. All right. So we're going to stick with defense. While Seabrook has said goodbye, we're going to look to the future. And the future on the blue line actually looks kind of good. They've got some guys, some young kids getting some valuable time this year. You've got Adam Boquist, Ian Mitchell, Nicholas Bodine, and Wyatt Kalnook have all gotten significant time, both at the NHL level and down for a couple of those guys down in Rockford, but they've looked good. So out of our young defenseman in the system, who is the one you're most excited about? Is it one of those 4 guys I mentioned, or is there someone I left off the list you're looking forward to? Shaun, who's the defenseman you're most impressed with or excited about right now?
Greg, a couple weeks ago, you mentioned Boquist for us to look out for him, and you were hoping he had a good week, and he did that week. And I remember that, and I remember thinking it's nice to see him finally progressing the way that we all hoped he could and hoped he would. So that's great. And obviously we hope progress in the right direction. We've seen what he's capable of, and we just want to see him keep raising that level. However, with that said, and expecting that of Boquist, I have to say, as much as he's sort of been a little bit sloppier as of late, Ian Mitchell, something about Mitchell since he's gotten into this lineup just excites me. I just like the way he plays. I like his poise. I like his confidence. I like how dynamic he shows he can be. I know it doesn't show a lot on his stat line just yet, even as far as offense or defense goes for blocks or hits or points, but just something about him being out there and looking like he can already play with the big boys, and he's already at the pro level, and he's still so young, and he still shows that level of confidence. It just excites is the best word to use. He just looks like once he reaches that next gear, and once he sort of tightens up these little pieces of his game and starts to come out and put it all together, I think he's going to really be a special player for this team. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what else Mitchell can bring to this team.
Yeah, he's had some growing pains of late, but that's what you should expect at that position at that age. Gail, who's your favorite baby blue liner right now?
One of the kittens, right? Can I say all of them? Because I'm so excited about everybody. And, to me, I like to root for the underdog, and they're all kind of underdogs now because they're all youngsters that are trying to make it and trying to be superstars. I was actually going to say Mitchell as well. I just think that he just seems so smart and intelligent and just like a good, smart kid. And like you said, the poise. But since you brought him up, I think I'm going to go with Nicholas Bodine. He's gotten more time than I really think that we thought. And I think it was because of injuries and such, but he made the most with that. And, to see him on the point and with the power play. And I just really, I'm rooting for him. And I'm pretty sure, Greg, I read it on your Twitter feed that what has he got, like, since he's been down in Rockford, like 5 assists or something in 2 or 3 games. Yeah. And so obviously he's excited to be back, which we know that he did get recalled and is going to make the trip with the team. So we'll see if he gets back out there.
Brooke, who's your top defensive prospect? Well, not really prospects, but young defenseman.
Well, this is a good topic because really whoever we pick isn't a bad choice. So, which is good since we all had like no choices last year. But Okay, so I agree with you guys on Mitchell and Bodine, but I love them both, honestly. And Boakfist, I'm really happy that he's been improving too. But I'm gonna go with Kalanick still. I know we talked about him before and how we kind of looked forward to his debut. And I know he had a really bad turnover yesterday in his NHL debut, but like you guys said, the growing pains for defensemen in the league when they first start out is real, so it's expected. But I'm still really excited about what he can bring. And like I said, maybe I'm a little biased because my family is big Wisconsin Badgers fans, so got that love going on. But yeah, I'm gonna say him. I think I'm still excited to see what I don't know if he's gonna get much more playing time, but still excited nonetheless.
Yeah, I definitely think they've got the foundation of a really good defense going forward, much like they had at the start of the last cup run. So hopefully this is something to build off of. As Shaun mentioned, I'm excited about Boquist playing much better since he got COVID and come back. Sometimes all you need is just some time away to recharge, and it seems to have done the trick. As I said before the year started, his progression is one of the biggest storylines of the season and for the future for the Hawks, especially considering where he was taken. So he's looking better. That's encouraging. It's what you want to see out of him. Bodine's been great this year, both in Rockford and Chicago. The strides he's made from opening night with the Ice Hogs last season to right now have been incredible. Even Derek King down in Rockford raved about him over the weekend. And said something along the lines of he's playing the best hockey of his career right now, and imagine how good he's going to be in 2 or 3 years. So, and he had the right attitude about his demotion. He knew it was a numbers game. He knew it wasn't about his play. And he said, I'm going to come down here. I got to talk to him during the week, and he said, I'm coming down here to play big minutes, to play top line minutes, and be a leader, and that's what I'm going to do. And he did, and he, good for him. He's got the right attitude. So those two kids are going to be, I think they're going to be special players. And we joked about the Subban trade a little bit earlier, but we got to remember, here's a trade that the Blackhawks definitely won. We got the picks for both Bodine and Philip Kurashev when we traded away Ryan Hartman to the Nashville Predators a couple years ago. So I know the consensus is we hate the Predators, so I think we can all agree when I say suck it, Predators, on that one.
And thankfully we can say that because I actually love Ryan Hartman, but he's not even on the Predators anymore. So really, suck it.
He's been on about 3 or 4 teams since
He
then.
kind of disappeared. I mean, he's on the Wild now, isn't he? But he's like fourth line, limited minutes, and
Yeah, that was a good trade. That worked out well for us. So all right, before we get into our next topic, just a quick reminder to click like on Facebook if you're watching on Facebook, or subscribe on YouTube. You can follow all of us as well as the Hockey Writers on Twitter to stay up to date on all things Blackhawks, Ice Hogs, everything you ever wanted to know. We got you covered. Last week, we had our friends, frenemies from Detroit on the show, so we didn't get to talk a whole lot about Patrick Kane's 400th goal. We mentioned it, we rubbed it in their face a little bit, but we didn't get to depth. So right now he's 4th on the franchise all-time scoring list, but he's only Steve Larmer is 3rd with 406 goals, so he's going to pass him soon, maybe by the next time we get together, who knows. So we know he's going to get to 3rd. But the next 2 guys on the list are Stan Makita with 541 goals and Bobby Hull. You've probably heard of those 2 guys. He's got 604 goals. So what do you guys think? Will he catch neither, or both of those guys? Where do you think Kane is going to finish when it's all said and done? Gail, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, so I actually did some math here. So Kane's 100th goal was in his 4th season. His 200th goal was 4 seasons after that. His 300th goal was 3 seasons after that, and his 400th goal was 3 seasons after that. So he's actually getting faster at these things. So 500 goals would be 3 to 4 years from now. So that would be 2023-24 season or 24-25 season. He'd be 35, 36 years old. Yeah, he's going to catch up or surpass Makita, barring injuries or some kind of crazy something, which, he's been so healthy. Oh God, knock on wood. But right. Okay. So there, Hull on the other hand. Okay. So that would, if you're going with this 3-4 year thing, would be, he'd be 38 or 39 years old, 2027, 2028. But if anybody can do it, Kane can. And Hull played until he was 41. So I could see it happening.
Okay, Brooke, how far up the list do you have Patrick Kane going?
Well, yeah, I agree with Gail. I think, honestly, this guy just keeps getting better with age. He's like fine wine. And I still feel like maybe we haven't even still seen his best. Like, we know he's at his best, but hey, he keeps pushing the limit and he keeps just achieving greatness, and it's amazing. So I think maybe like for like realistic purposes, we can say that he'll take Makita, and then once he does that, then we'll see if he can catch Hall. But honestly, yes, I do think it's very realistic with the role or with the game he's been playing and stuff. And plus, like Gail said, he could play till he's 40, and honestly, I can see him playing till 50. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's very realistic.
All right, Shaun, is he catching 21 and number 9?
Yeah, I did a little bit of math myself. Obviously, he's going to catch Makita. I think that's a no-brainer. That's a safe bet there. When you do a little bit of that math, if he plays until he's 40, modestly speaking, we've clearly seen he's an over 20 goals a year player. He's hit 30 and 40 multiple times. However, even factoring in some natural regression, which we don't even know when that's coming, because as has already been said by Gail and Brooke, this guy just keeps getting better and keeps elevating and progressing in different ways. But let's just be realistic. He will regress at some point. So let's assume he plays 8 more years, plays till he's 40, regresses to 20 goals only a season. He's still at 160. So he still well surpasses Makita. If he can maintain or find another gear or play even more bonus years post 40, then hitting Hull is totally realistic as well. But I think it's a safe bet that he's going to pass Makita, and then judging on what else he can do and how else he can progress his game, we'll see how close he gets to Hull.
You know what, Shaun? Just let us. Why did you have to bring up the R word? We were having fun. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think he'll get Makita. Obviously, getting back to hopefully 82 game seasons is going to help. We've lost a few games these last 2 years. Hopefully, starting next year, it's back to 82. As Gail kind of mentioned, in his favor, he's had no nagging injury history. Knock on wood. The only major injury he's ever had was that broken collarbone in 2015. It's not like he has a bad knees or a bad back that flares up and keeps him out. Doesn't have concussion problems. So hopefully that remains the same. And of course, you got to factor in the business side of that. We'll just say in a perfect world, he finishes out his career with the Blackhawks. There's no reason he can't catch and pass Makita. Hull will be a little more difficult, but I'm not dumb enough to bet against Patrick Kane at this point. So I'll just say, sure, let's put him at the top of the list. It won't be easy, but it'll be fun to watch. So we'll see how that all plays.
Be sure to join us 8 years from now when we're doing this again. We'll revisit it.
Blackhawks Banter episode 412. We will talk about his 605th goal. All right. So moving on from what may happen in the future to something that's going to happen for sure in about a month. We've discussed this rebuild many times this season, but this hardly looks like a team that's in the middle of tearing it down. Things have kind of changed during this year. The NHL trade deadline is rapidly approaching. It is April 12th. And depending on what happens this tough month of March, General Manager Stan Bowman could be in a very weird position. While he has publicly stated that the team is rebuilding, his team could be and likely will be still challenging for a playoff spot. More on that moment. That's called foreshadowing right there. If the Blackhawks are still challenging for a playoff spot come April 12th, what would you do at the deadline? If you're sitting behind the GM's desk, are you going to stick to the plan and try to move some veterans for assets? Are you going to trade away young players and draft picks to try and get some rental players to make a run for it? Or do you just leave it all as it is and see how this group finishes out? So, Brooke, no pressure, but you're starting on this one.
I chose that I would move veterans for assets, and that's kind of a weird position, but I'm still looking realistically. I don't think this team is a Stanley Cup contender. They're fun. I don't think they're there. And realistically, I don't think they're there yet. So I think it's still realistic to try to build around this the best you can. And honestly, I feel like right now our veterans are kind of on the outside looking in because it has been the young show. So I wouldn't mind moving. It's hard. I wouldn't mind moving someone like DeHaan for assets, or maybe even Murphy. It's not something I'm advocating for necessarily, but I would understand going that route. But out of the three, that's what I would choose.
Righty. Shaun, you get to play GM come April 12th. What are you doing?
Yeah, a bit of a hybrid approach, in my opinion. First and foremost, I think they just continue forward, continue doing what they're doing. I think we need to recognize that the plan is moving faster than they expected, but that's okay. It's okay that it's moving faster. But at the same time, I don't think that should deviate the course of action here as far as giving these kids a chance to develop and really take over this team. So we're already seeing that happen, and I think we should continue to see that happen. Whatever direction it takes to the team and next, we're going to have to wait and find out like the rest of the world here. But that shouldn't mean that they should start losing any of their potential stardom, and they shouldn't be giving any of that away for a potential push, because like Brooke said, this team isn't there yet. And if it's working the way they're doing it, why not keep building in that direction? So what I would say more so is similar to what Brooke said, but as far as different veterans are concerned, I would say, if you can pick up some assets or you can pick up future picks and help build for your future, then certainly take advantage of that. If other teams are looking for some of your veterans, that might help them now. But it would have to be players that aren't necessarily being as much of a factor for the Hawks in today's game. So, the Zadorovs, for example, I could make a case for another team. He might be a better fit there, and perhaps that makes that trade a better turn of events for the Blackhawks, because maybe they actually get something that they should have gotten in the first place for him. So I would say continue doing what they're doing. If this team continues to surprise, that's great. Let's go along for the ride, but they shouldn't be doing anything different as far as taking away the focus from the youth leading the way here.
That sounds like a sound plan. Gail, what's your decision here?
Okay, so if this team is in a playoff spot at the end of all this, they deserve to ride it out and go for it. So don't tear this team down. Give them their shot. I think that the management owes it to them. If they earn that spot, I could see them. Obviously, if the offer is right, trading away, looking to the future, obviously, because that is the primary goal. Not the present, but the future is the primary goal. So if they, it would be tough to see somebody like DeHaan or Carl Soderberg, Janmark. They could probably get some good return for those guys, but it would be tough because they're all pretty impactful on the team as well. So that's something that's Stan will have to figure out when it comes to that. But yeah, long story short, I think that for the most part they should stand pat and see where it takes them.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely don't think in any way, shape, or form you need to be trading away any assets to get a rental player.
No.
Even if you're in third place come April 12th, you still got to face either Tampa Bay or Carolina in the first round in a 7-game series. It's not worth trading away. You got to keep big picture in the mind here. That being said, if they've had a disastrous rest of the month and they're kind of on the outside looking in, then I definitely try and get as many assets as possible. You definitely have a lot of guys on this team that are the type of player general managers will overpay for at the trade deadline. Guys like Murphy and DeHaan, as we mentioned, Soderberg, a Janmark, even though I'd like to see Janmark signed to a longer term deal this summer, but we'll see how that works out. So I would look to add some more assets. You can never have too many prospects and draft picks when you're quote unquote rebuilding. If you're still kind of in contention, then I would just, I agree with Gail. If there aren't any offers that are knocking your socks off for any of these guys, then let them finish it out. But I would definitely have no problem moving DeHaan and or Murphy. They're both nice players, good players. But that we just talked about how many good young defensive guys we have right now, and that will open up more playing time for all of them. So I don't think trading one of those guys or both of those guys would be the end of the world, even if they still are in a playoff spot. So it's a tricky, weird situation for Stan Bowman to be in. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure we'll have plenty to complain about no matter what he does come April
Exactly.
13th.
You can have Zadorov.
Big show. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Maybe we'll bump banter and we'll record like
Live.
right at the 3:01 deadline, just so it's all fresh and we're all amped up, and we'll go uncensored for that episode. All right, so we're gonna hit our final topic of the night. Get everybody back to their busy evenings. We mentioned briefly this tough month of March that the Hawks have gotten themselves into. So let's make our predictions for the week instead of really focusing on the upcoming week. Let's just talk about this month as a whole. They have a brutal schedule this month. They have 5 total games with the Lightning, so 2 more, 4 against Florida. They have 2 coming up against the Dallas Stars and the Nashville Predators, and it ends with the first of 2 games against Carolina. So they're playing more of the teams ahead of them as opposed to the Columbuses and the Detroits who are behind them. So things could change by the end of the month. So my prediction question for you guys is, when we do flip over that calendar to the month of April, do you think the Blackhawks are still in the top 4 in the division and in a playoff spot? Shaun, what do you think?
Yes, they will be. Obviously, we've seen the progression that they've made from the first set against Tampa to what we just saw them do last week. I think we can expect more of the same as far as what they're going to come out doing versus these teams who are ahead of them in the standings so far. They're just going to keep playing better, and we've seen that be their trend. There's no reason to believe that won't continue to be their trend. So when they see Florida again, when they see Carolina again, obviously Florida, they have some redemption to work on, but Carolina, they've already played solid against anyway. So I think, again, we're going to see more of that. They're going to play solid. They're going to get some points where they need to. And I think they're going to be even better than we've already seen in these tough matchups. All the while, in the background, you have teams that are behind them that still can't figure it out and are still playing inconsistent. And I think that's going to work to their advantage. You have the Stars and the Preds, and they're just not figuring it out yet. The Red Wings obviously are a lost cause. So I think the Hawks are still going to sit pretty because they're going to do better, and they're going to benefit from the teams behind them just still not being able to figure it out.
Okay, Gail. April 1st, are the Hawks a playoff team, or is that an April Fool's joke?
I do think that they're going to steal some points with their competitiveness, so don't count them out. And they really do have kind of a nice cushion going. So they have 31 points right now. Blue Jackets have 25. Predators have 22. So that's a nice cushion. Dallas has 19 points, which you're like, oh my gosh, right? But there's 6 less games they've played. Okay, but let's look at this. If they actually win all 6 of those games, they're at 31 points, which is where the Blackhawks are right now. Are they really going to win all 6 of those games? They could catch up. Any of these teams could catch up. But I'm happy with where the Blackhawks are right now, and I think that they definitely have a shot to be there April 1st.
All right, Brooke, are you hoping that they let fans in for the playoffs so you can get your playoff tickets, or you're not buying just yet?
Yes, I do think that they will be in a playoff spot. I know this is a really tough schedule, and honestly could go either way. They could play better than expected, or this could kind of blow up in their face, but I do think they will be, mostly because everyone behind them is a dumpster fire. Dallas, I don't even know what the heck. They were like on a good roll, and then all of a sudden now they're terrible. Columbus, like I said, they're a dumpster fire. Detroit, yeah, dumpster. Like, thankfully they are. So I think even if this goes really like horribly after this, I still think they're in a good position since everyone else can't seem to figure it out and are dumpster fires. So yay for dumpster fires.
I feel like this is an episode of Sesame Street. Today's episode is brought to you by dumpster fires.
I'll say that
I'll agree and keep the consensus that they'll still be in a playoff spot at the end of March. Not necessarily because of what they're doing, but while they're playing this tough schedule, everybody who's trying to catch them is spending the month of March playing each other. So unless one of those teams gets super hot, and as Shaun mentioned, not as poetically as Brooke did, they're playing inconsistently. So unless one of those teams gets red hot, I don't see them catching the Hawks, at least not until April. I'm glad Gail mentioned the Stars. because I was going to mention them too. I think a lot of Blackhawk fans are doing a disservice by writing them off. You mentioned they have 6 games in hand, 12 points behind. Here's something else to think about. They have spent the whole season without Tyler Seguin and Ben Bishop. They've pretty much not had Alex Radulov the whole season either. He's only played a handful of games. They're expecting to get all 3 of those guys back in the next couple of weeks, or at least by the end of the month. That's like having the greatest trade deadline you've ever had without making a single trade. Don't write them off. I'm not saying they're going to catch the Blackhawks. I'm not saying we should be scared of them, but just to think, when you just look at the points, I think it's a little irresponsible to just say, yeah, the Dallas Stars are done. They've got 6 games in hand, 12 points back. They go 4-2, they're 4 points back. And then, what happens? We still got a lot of games head to head with them, including 2 this week. So
Yes. Starts this
maybe-
week.
yes, so maybe beating them again 2 more times in regulation will go a long way for keeping them behind them. So if there's one team that's going to catch the Blackhawks, I think it's going to be the Stars. I just don't, maybe the Blue Jackets, because they've got good goaltending allegedly that could carry them.
What is their story? Have they like kind of pulled their crap together, or are they playing?
I don't know. I think it's just the typical thing we've seen with John Tortorella throughout his career. Eventually, the players get sick of his crap and they just don't want to hear it anymore, and the team stops playing. It's happened everywhere he's gone, and that could be what we're seeing right now. I mean, how many guys are going to demand to get traded out of that team in one season? They may set a record for that, which is not a record you want. So we'll see. We've got a couple weeks to talk all about that, and we'll see on our first episode of April where they are and how right or wrong we were, but we're all right. So that's going to wrap up the Denny Savard episode of Blackhawks Banter. Thank you all for checking in and watching tonight. My thanks to Gail, Brooke, and Shaun for chatting tonight. Also on the back end, another shout out to Melissa Boyd and Dean Plunkett for making all the magic happen and producing these and getting these online. And most importantly, the viewers and the readers. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without you guys reading the website, watching the show. So we are grateful for all of your attention and readership. So that will wrap it up. Thank you guys for chatting, and we will see you guys back next week with a brand new episode. Take care, everybody.
Take care.